Hello, good morning. My name is Imran Rawasht. My project is using open source to teach software engineering. This is a one-person project. As stated, my name is Imran, previously stated, and let's move on. The paper that I used was called a view of a portal to catalog worked examples extracted from open source software projects to support the teaching of software engineering. Basically, the whole objective of the paper was to create a portal. This study was conducted in Brazil, and the objective of it was to create a portal for different instructors to use open source software in their educational process. This presentation attempts to understand the gap between market needs and the instruction process in the education facilities. And it's common knowledge that software engineering and software development is constantly changing, constantly evolving. There's always new software, there's always new development, there's always new market needs. And this creates a bit of a challenge for instructors in the software engineering educational facilities to keep up with the market needs. So the aim of the paper that I'm presenting today was to create a portal that would later turn into a catalog and that uses open source software. Some of the difficulties and the challenges that are faced in using open source software is that it requires significant effort to select appropriate projects for student engagement. Not every open source project is fit for educational purposes, and that's one of the challenges that this paper faced as they were gathering the resources and the literature. The methodology that was created was used design science research paradigm, which focuses on constructing innovative artifacts to solve practical problems in specific domains. Another advantage for open source software in worked examples reduces the cognitive burden imposed by problem solving and facilitates the construction of cognitive schemes, meaning that the instructor teaching the software engineering course had to use less time solving problems, but more time focusing on the development of the cognitive scheme as to how to solve the problem, seen as the software is already available and it's relevant to today's market. Developing instruction methodologies that includes the work example have proved to show beneficial results to students with little to no prior knowledge and can be efficient learning through problem solving. So we can see basically from this point that was extracted from the paper that the level of knowledge or prior knowledge that the student had, whether he was a college degree or a bachelor's or master's, or he was in a course for certification, played a big role in how beneficial this portal was. And later on in the paper, we're also going to discuss the prior experience and knowledge of the instructors themselves. The motivation and problem formulation. My personal motivation for doing a project on this paper was because I see myself in the future in academia and computer science, and that's why I chose to do my presentation on this paper. The motivation in the project for the people who created the paper lies in the desire to develop systems and methodologies that assist the process of learning and teaching software engineering, and finding real-life examples that reflect the evolution in software engineering can be challenging for instructors. Therefore, the process of learning through OSS by using a portal of open sources as a starting point and arriving at a catalog of worked examples that are used in instruction. The paper studies the use of DSR, and it broke it up into several cycles. It started off with the relevance cycle, or the environment, which basically studies the problem that's being faced and the objective and the investigation of the process. The problem was basically the challenge that is being faced or encountered by instructors of software engineering and their utilization of OSS. The objective of the paper was to create a portal, starting off with a portal, and the end result would be a catalog of worked examples, or basically projects that have been studied and developed and that are relevant to today's market, that can be used in the instructional process, that could be beneficial to the students. The investigation, starting from the problem and reaching the objective, happened through a survey and study of the literature related to the use of OSS projects to support the teaching of software engineering, and then a survey with higher educational instructors on the use of examples and difficulties in the search. The design cycle: artifact project portal development for cataloging worked examples. The first step was to create a focus group with software engineering specialists, basically people who are in the field, people who develop, people who create and contribute to the open source software. And through this focus group, we move on to step 2, which is the instantiation of the model for refactoring and microservices. The next step was the instantiation of the model by the software engineering instructors. So we moved from the specialists, the people who are contributing to open source. We created a model through their contributions, and now we are creating a model that can be used by the instructors. Step 4 was the use of a portal prototype, the initial, the pilot copy of it, so to speak, and then we created a verbal lesson planning by the software engineering instructors and complete lesson planning by software engineering instructors. Basically, it was the design cycle had to go through several runs, and each run, as we will see a little further down, each run we got our the paper receives feedback from the teachers, and it was improved based upon the feedback that was received. The next cycle will be the rigor cycle, which is the fundamentals. The fundamentals, basically, we are focused on education in software engineering, open source software project, and worked examples. The contributions: portal to catalog and worked examples, identification of the difficulties faced by instructors in adopting OSS projects and teaching, guidelines for instructions in the adoption of open source software projects and worked examples in the teaching of software engineering, evidence that the portal can reduce the challenges faced by the instructors, evidence that the worked example extracted from the OSS projects can provide contact with real projects and problems, and evidence that the portal can help instructors keep their examples up to date. It's worth noting that one of the steps the paper is utilizing the literature was by conducting a questionnaire with 20 software engineering instructors, and they were broken up with different education levels, different experiences. As mentioned before, this was conducted in Brazil. So 15 of the 20 instructors questioned were in Brazil, and 5 were in different countries. 6 of them hold a PhD, and 4 of them have a master's degree. And their experience teaching software engineering ranged from 1 year to 40 years. 3 of the respondents work in the industry in parallel with teaching, meaning they have a day-to-day job, plus they're an instructor of computer science or software engineering. and 11 have worked previously in the industry and are no longer in the industry, and 6 hadn't worked at all in the industry and were strictly in the academia field. This questionnaire found that prior to the creation of this portal, only 2 of them had used only real examples, meaning their whole instruction was based completely off of real examples. And on average, 8 of them used most of the real examples. So mostly they used real examples, some more, and partly were used simple educational projects. And on average, 9 of them used no real examples, and on average 4 of them didn't use any real examples at all. After the creation of this portal and catalog, we'll look at the results that included improvements in the template were made at the end of each cycle, always taking into account the feedback received. One of the main problems identified was the lack of pedagogical elements in the template. To solve this problem, we created 2 pedagogical elements in the template: usage suggestion and usage restriction, basically assisting these instructors as to how to use a portal. This would assist instructors in the selection of applications and examples that were more relevant to the subject they were teaching and the software that was being perceived. The improvements pointed out in this were related to structure of cataloged examples, portal usability, and search in the portal. All instructors participating in the study found ways to use the examples in class, some using more traditional methodologies and others focusing on active methodologies. The instructors were invited to narrate their decisions and reflection using the process of searching for worked examples and preparing class. So it's I think point 2 is really worth emphasizing here, that through this portal that was created by the paper that later became a catalog of used examples, all of the instructors, regardless of how we saw before, regardless of their experience in software engineering, or whether it was strictly academia, or whether they are currently in the market working, all of them were able to use this portal to help in their instruction of their classes. In this evaluation, the instructors did not need to create any material. The preparation of the class was strictly verbal, meaning the software was already available, and simply they had to create a verbal plan as to how to break it down and present it, and create the scheme for how the students would be able to move on and create their own versions of it, and understand the scheme of problem solving that is highly linked to software engineering. The simplicity of the portal also was a huge advantage in this research, as noted by one of the instructors. It's worth noting that the portal links to GitHub made a little difficult to one of the instructors, but because of the lack of experience and his lack of use of GitHub. Another note worth studying here is that there is not enough literature using open source software to teach SQL to draw any conclusions in this matter. So unlike more development in SQL, we were unable to draw enough conclusions by looking at this paper to see that open source software was indeed beneficial. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Imran. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.